After my demotion, my team threw a party with a sign saying, "Ding dong, the witch is dead," as management laughed. I was told, "You're just not leadership material," and forced to serve interns coffee. I endured every humiliation in silence, until one file named, "Rot from the Top" changed everything. "Ding dong, the witch is dead." That's what the sign read, taped right in the center of the break room. Big black letters, hand-drawn, bolded, underlined. Someone even doodled a broomstick and a pointy hat. There were balloons, a sheet cake, loud laughter, champagne, and music. And I stood there in silence, holding a stack of reports I had just printed out from my new cubicle next to the mailroom. I had just been demoted. After 3 years of leading some of the most profitable marketing campaigns in the company's history, I had been reassigned to an entry-level assistant position. And my team, the very people I trained, supported, defended to upper management, they threw a party to celebrate my fall. Management didn't stop them. They watched, smiled, even clinked glasses. That's the day I decided. I'm not walking away quietly. I'm going to burn this place down, not literally, but legally. Let me take you back to the beginning. I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, 5 years ago. I had just turned 34, left a toxic marriage behind in Dallas, and was looking for a fresh start. I landed a job at Kenshaw and Blake Marketing, a mid-sized ad agency downtown. Nothing flashy, but solid. They handled big accounts for local banks, energy companies, and a few national food brands. At first, it felt like a blessing. I started as a campaign associate. Within a year, I was promoted to project lead. By year 2, I became a team manager. I built a small group of 5 people, handpicked, trained, and mentored. Our campaigns broke records. We turned a struggling grocery brand into a regional household name. We rebranded an insurance company with the lowest customer ratings into one that ranked top 3 in the Midwest in just 6 months. And we landed a national beverage contract that was worth 7 figures in renewals. I worked late, missed holidays, sacrificed weekends, but I believed it would pay off. And for a while it did. But then came Mason, tall, overconfident, Ivy League, son of a board member, though he always insisted he earned everything. They brought him in as the new department head. From the moment he arrived, something shifted. He didn't care about past results. He didn't ask about what worked. He didn't even bother learning people's names unless they could help him move up. And he hated that I had loyal staff and results he couldn't compete with. Worse, he hated that I was a woman who didn't back down. Every time I questioned one of his wasteful ideas, he'd smirk. Every time I asked for clarity on budgets, he'd accuse me of micromanaging. And every time I won praise from the parent company, he'd assign me grunt work or shuffle resources away from my team. Then came the performance review. Despite every measurable success, Mason marked me down for poor collaboration, lack of flexibility, and difficulty adjusting to new leadership. I objected. He waved it off, said it was constructive feedback. And then, within a week, I got the news. "You've been reassigned, effective immediately. You'll be assisting the intern coordination team, reporting to Megan." Megan, a 23-year-old intern I had mentored just months ago. I wasn't fired. I wasn't given a chance to appeal, just quietly stripped of authority and sent downstairs. I went to HR. They said the decision was final. I went to the COO. He said, "You're just not leadership material." The next Monday, I showed up at 8 a.m. sharp, and I played their game. I fetched coffee. I printed reports. I booked catering for lunch and learns. I even took Megan's dry cleaning once. Every day, they tried to break me with petty, demeaning assignments. But while they thought they were crushing me, I was gathering evidence. Because I remembered something from Mason's budget emails that never added up. Thousands in vendor payments that had no receipts. In-house marketing assets paid out to external contractors. Diversity initiatives with no participants listed. Bonuses issued from discretionary budgets right before quarterly reports. I started digging. Quietly, carefully, every lunch break, every slow hour. I used my clearance while it still worked, screen-capped everything. Transferred files to a private drive at home. It was worse than I thought. Mason wasn't just incompetent, he was covering theft. And he wasn't alone. One of the VPs had funneled department funds to her brother's consulting firm. HR had buried multiple internal complaints about sexist remarks and age discrimination, especially involving older female staff. And one exec had been reimbursing travel expenses for a recruiting trip that turned out to be a luxury golf weekend. After 6 weeks of digging, I had nearly 100 files. That's when I created the anonymous packet and sent it straight to the legal department of the parent company in Chicago. The folder was titled, Rot from the Top. I sent it anonymously. New burner email, VPN, clean metadata. 3 days later, all hell broke loose. Compliance officers arrived quietly on a Wednesday. No announcement, no all-staff email. They just started calling people into conference rooms. By Friday, Mason was out on emergency leave. By Monday, the VP and HR director were no longer with the company. And by Tuesday, they shut down the entire intern coordination wing. I got called into a meeting. 2 lawyers, 1 investigator, 1 HR rep from corporate. They showed me a printed version of the packet, asked if I had anything to add. I said, depends, am I being punished or thanked? They said, neither. We're here to fix this. Exclamation mark, what would you do if your team threw a party after your demotion? Comment your state below. I'm curious how people's offices treat them across the country. And hit like if you think karma showed up early. I didn't tell anyone it was me. Not even my sister, who I told everything to, not my old coworkers. Not even Megan, who had started avoiding me. The minute things at the office turned ugly. But 2 weeks after the investigators came and went, I noticed a strange shift. Someone had been in my desk drawer. A post-it note that I left stuck to the inside flap was now on top of the keyboard. Then someone reset the login password to my internal employee portal. I hadn't changed it. It couldn't explain it. Said maybe it was a system update, but it wasn't. And then came the email. No subject line, no signature. Just 6 words, we know what you did, rat. I checked the email address. It wasn't from company servers. It was a Proton Mail account, no way to trace it. That night, someone slashed the back tires of my car. I reported it to corporate HR. They said they'd investigate. But I could tell they just wanted to sweep it under the rug now that Mason and his little corruption ring were gone. To them, the problem had been handled, tied up neatly in a bow, but someone inside still had a grudge, and I had no idea who. At work, people started whispering behind my back. One by one, my old teammates avoided eye contact. My new desk was moved to a temporary spot near the janitor's closet while they restructured. My name was taken off the internal staff page. When I asked about it, they said it was just a system update. Sound familiar? I kept my head down, did my job. I even stayed late some nights, hoping to avoid whoever might be targeting me. That's how I stumbled into the next twist. One night, I stayed until after 7 p.m. Everyone else was gone. I went down to the print server room to collect some materials for a marketing binder when I heard voices. Laughing. I peeked around the corner. It was Travis, one of the newer campaign leads, and Stacy from accounting. They were standing in front of a big box filled with binders, whispering. And on the table beside them was a stack of envelopes marked retention bonus. I froze. The retention bonuses were part of the budget Mason had lied about, funds that were supposed to have been eliminated due to budget cuts. They were still issuing them. Quietly, selectively, I recorded it. Just a few seconds of audio, but enough to hear Travis say, "They'll never track it now that Mason's gone. Just shred the copies after." The next morning, I sent a new email to the legal team at the parent company. This time, I added a note. Mason wasn't the end of the problem. It goes deeper. Keep looking. No response. But I knew they got it. Because 3 days later, the Chicago team showed up again. More interviews, more questions. And this time, Travis and Stacy both resigned suddenly. But I wasn't celebrating, because someone still knew I was the whistleblower. And now, the threats got bolder. My car's windshield was cracked. Someone dumped coffee all over my keyboard one morning. And an anonymous HR complaint was filed against me for hostile behavior. When I asked to see the complaint, they said it was confidential. When I asked to know who filed it, they said it was anonymous. But I already knew. They were trying to push me out, make me quit. After all, firing a whistleblower would be illegal, but forcing one out with performance issues, much easier to explain, so I started planning something bigger. I found a local attorney, Grace Chen, known for employment law and whistleblower protection cases. I booked a consultation and showed her everything. The documents, the emails, the recordings, the HR retaliation. Her words, "You've got a case, a big one." But she gave me a warning, too. They won't stop until they know who helped take them down. And if they figure it out, they'll make your life hell. That's when we built the second phase of my plan. A lawsuit was one option. But it would be public. And long. Instead, Grace helped me prepare a full whistleblower protection claim under Oklahoma law and the federal Sarbanes-Oxley Act, just in case they tried to fire me. But we had something even better up our sleeves. I started working nights and weekends, not at the office, but with Grace. We were building a case so airtight, so undeniable it would force the company's hand. Not just to protect me, but to force a full restructure. I compiled timelines, emails, anonymous statements from former employees, and copies of fake vendor invoices. Grace contacted a forensic accountant. He reviewed 6 years of records and flagged $780,000 in questionable payouts. Meanwhile, corporate had no clue what was coming, until someone leaked an internal memo that proved they knew. Someone in upper management had seen the same reports and buried them. It wasn't just mismanagement, it was cover-up. We forwarded everything to the SEC, and then we made our move. An official whistleblower complaint was filed under Grace's name. We included every piece of evidence, every name, every quote, every date. Within 2 weeks, the company got a subpoena. An official federal investigation was opened. And the best part, they still didn't know it was me. But someone was starting to suspect. Because the next message I got, it wasn't a threat, it was a warning. "They're going to set you up. Watch your back." The warning came through an encrypted text. No name, no traceable number, just a burner with a scrambled ID. "They're going to set you up. Watch your back." I stared at it for 5 minutes straight. Was it real, a trick? A scare tactic? I forwarded it to Grace, my attorney. She called immediately. "Someone on the inside is trying to help you. Take it seriously." So I did. That same week, things at the office got weird. Subtle at first, then aggressive. On Monday, I got called into a surprise meeting with HR and 2 senior managers. They said someone had accused me of creating a toxic environment and spreading false information. No names were mentioned. No specific incident. But they handed me a written warning. I refused to sign it. One of the managers, Doug, leaned forward and said, "We're trying to avoid escalating things. But continued disruption could affect your future here." Future? They demoted me to assistant. Now they were threatening my assistant job. I didn't flinch. Instead, I did what they never expected. I smiled. Because Grace had already told me how to handle this part. That night, I used my personal laptop to log into my home Wi-Fi and opened the secure drive Grace set up. I uploaded the photo I took of the warning slip. Then I typed out a summary of everything that happened that day and sent it to our secure case file. We had a strategy: document everything, say nothing, wait, and strike when they overplay their hand. They were trying to push me to quit, or act out, or say something that could justify firing. But I wasn't going to give them that. Instead, I was going to let them keep digging their own hole. That Friday, I found a small black box taped underneath my desk. A recorder, battery-operated, voice-activated, not a company device. I brought it straight to Grace. She had a tech investigator look it over. Result? Someone had been recording me for weeks, and not legally. When we pulled the audio, the recorder had picked up hallway chatter too. And one clip chilled me, Doug's voice. "We just need one misstep from her, something, anything." Female voice, maybe Stacy. "If she so much as rolls her eyes in a meeting, file it." They were actively trying to bait me. Grace sent a cease and desist to the company the next day, citing unlawful surveillance. They went silent for 48 hours. Then, they launched a full internal investigation on me. They said I had violated trust protocols and employee cohesion values. They suspended me with pay while they looked into it. And that's when I knew this was it. Their final move. They were going to try to fire me. Quietly. No public drama. No paper trail connecting it to the whistleblowing. But I wasn't alone. Grace filed an emergency motion with the Federal Whistleblower Board and alerted the SEC attorney handling our complaint. She cited retaliation, harassment, illegal surveillance, and coercion. She even included audio clips and a digital forensic breakdown of the spy device. Then, she did something bold. She contacted a reporter from the Oklahoman, a business journalist named Noah Kessler who had covered shady corporate shakeups in Tulsa before. Within a week, he published a story. Tulsa marketing firm faces federal probe after whistleblower exposes internal fraud and retaliation. He didn't name me, but he named the firm. He mentioned corruption, illegal bonuses, document tampering, and even a suspected cover-up involving executive leadership. The story exploded locally. And then, on social media, former employees started chiming in anonymously. I used to work there. What this person is saying is 100% real. I got let go for asking about overtime discrepancies. The HR director covered for a VP who had an affair with an intern, then gave her a bonus. It spiraled fast. By the time my investigative suspension hit day 10, corporate from Chicago had taken over the office. A full audit, clean sweep. Doug, fired, 2 more managers, gone. The CEO of the parent company issued a public statement. We take all allegations seriously and are cooperating fully with federal investigators. But here's where the real twist happened. They offered me a deal. A big one. Grace and I were called into a private meeting with corporate counsel. They didn't threaten, they begged. We're prepared to offer a full reinstatement, salary increase, public apology, and a settlement figure for the emotional distress and retaliation. I asked, why? And the lead counsel said, because your file didn't just bring down a few bad apples, it exposed systemic failure, and we'd rather settle than have this turn into a landmark federal case. The number they offered, mid-6 figures, I didn't say yes. Not yet. Because I had one final condition. When they slid that settlement offer across the table, Grace looked at me. She didn't have to say anything. She was giving me the chance to decide. 6 figures, a public apology, my name cleared. My role reinstated. All of that was justice, sure, but it still wasn't revenge. Not really. Because the people who laughed at me, the ones who partied in the break room with that sign, the ones who stood by while I was humiliated, bullied, demoted, and erased. Most of them were still there, still employed, still smiling, so I looked the legal team in the eye and said, I'll take the deal, but I want one more thing. They paused, shifted in their seats. I want my own team back, not a job, authority. Budget, and I want every person who was promoted during my demotion demoted exactly the way I was. There was silence. Then the younger counsel, trying to sound smooth, asked, You want us to demote people as a condition of settlement? I didn't blink. No, I want equal treatment. Your internal report already proved they used false HR write-ups, retaliated with pay cuts, and created a hostile work environment. I want them to feel what I felt. You want closure. This is mine. They tried to negotiate. Those people weren't directly involved. The environment was systemic, not personal. It could trigger new legal complaints. I didn't budge. Grace backed me up. Retaliation has consequences. Public humiliation has consequences. If you don't want a full-blown lawsuit and federal hearing with depositions, this is the deal. They asked for 48 hours to discuss it. We gave them 24. The next day I got an email. Subject line, terms accepted. Attached were the agreement papers, full settlement, title restored, back pay awarded, a letter of apology signed by corporate's VP of Legal, and one final clause, marked Confidential Internal Action Plan. Inside that clause, Doug was terminated for cause. 3 employees who benefited from my demotion were reassigned. 2 were placed under performance review. And the one who wrote Ding Dong, the witch is dead, she was let go, with a note, for violating standards of professional conduct and contributing to a hostile work environment. I signed the deal. And I walked back into the building 2 weeks later, not as the assistant in the corner, but as director of strategic campaigns, reporting directly to a new regional VP out of Chicago. My old desk, gone. I got an office. With a door, some faces went pale when they saw me. A few avoided eye contact altogether. Megan, who had once been my intern, then my supervisor, approached me in the elevator. I just wanted to say I didn't know what was really happening. I'm sorry for how I acted. I nodded. You could have asked, but you didn't. I didn't need her apology, and I didn't hold a grudge, because some people were just pawns. Others, they knew what they were doing. A month later, Grace called. You've got one more surprise. The SEC had reviewed our case, and because my whistleblower file triggered multiple fraud findings, some with interstate financial impact, I was entitled to a federal whistleblower reward. The amount, $147,000. Taxable, yes, but still mine. Grace helped make sure it was handled discreetly. No press. No press release, but I knew. I had taken down an entire network of petty tyrants, embezzlers, and cowardly middle managers. Not with a tantrum, not with tears, but with cold, patient, relentless truth. Now, I keep the recorder they tried to use against me in my desk drawer. Not to spy, just as a reminder that no matter how small they try to make you, no matter how humiliating the fall, revenge hits harder when it's quiet, legal, and permanent. Want more stories like this? Hit the like button. Comment your state. I want to know where the worst office politics happen. And subscribe. I've got more revenge stories coming that'll make your jaw drop.